1. We're checking out this sweet 1978 Ford F-150 I found on Craigslist for $7,000. Let me tell you, this is actually a pretty interesting find. It's a two-owner truck with some real family history behind it. This brown beauty is rocking the legendary 400 cubic inch V8 under the hood, paired with an automatic transmission. With 119,000 original miles, that's actually pretty reasonable for a truck of this vintage. The seller's uncle was the original owner and mainly used it for hauling a slide-in camper, which explains why it hasn't been beaten to death like many old work trucks. What's really cool here is that it's got those factory bucket seats. That's a nice touch for a 70s F-150. The body's holding up pretty well for its age, though I've got to keep it real with you. There are a few dings in the bed and a rust spot in the bed floor. But hey, for a 45-year-old truck in the American market, that's actually not bad at all. The seller even has the R emblem that goes on the hood, which is a nice little detail for authenticity. The clean title and RWD setup make this a straightforward, honest truck. At $7,000, considering the current market for classic trucks and this one's relatively good condition and documented history, it's not a bad deal at all. Sure, it's not perfect, but it's a solid example of a late 70s F-150 that still runs and drives well. These old Ford trucks are getting harder to find in this kind of condition, especially with such low ownership history. 2. We're looking at something pretty unique. A 1984 Chevy El Camino, listed for $7,500. Let's dive into this car-truck hybrid that's got quite a following among enthusiasts. I've got to be straight with you about something right away. The seller mentions the odometer has rolled over, so while it shows 90,000 miles, we're actually looking at 190,000 plus miles here. That's important to know up front, but don't let that scare you off just yet. This El Camino comes with the V6 engine paired to the reliable Turbo 350 automatic transmission. Not the most powerful setup these came with, but these are known to be pretty bulletproof powertrains. The seller states it's a good runner, which is always what you want to hear. What's really catching my attention here is the body condition. The seller claims it's straight with no rust, which is pretty rare for these El Caminos. They were notorious for rust issues, especially in the bed area. The black paint gives it that classic muscle car vibe, and it's sitting on good rims with good tires. 3. We're checking out something pretty special. A 1978 Dodge Power Wagon that's got me genuinely excited. Let's talk about this $18,500 piece of American muscle. First things first, let's be real about the odometer situation. It's broken, so the 85,000 miles shown might not tell the whole story. But honestly, with these old trucks, mileage becomes less important when you look at the overall package and what's been done to it. This Power Wagon is rocking its original 318 V8 that's been overhauled. That's the bulletproof 5.2-liter engine that Dodge built their reputation on. The automatic transmission paired with 4WD makes this a serious capability machine. What's really impressive is that it's wearing its original paint and body. Finding these old Dodges without major bodywork or repaints is getting really rare. The seller has put some serious money into this truck. We're looking at a new rough country 4-inch lift suspension, new wheels and tires, and a completely new fuel system. Plus, it's got factory AC, which is a nice luxury for a 78. The short bed configuration makes it more manageable for daily use, and let's be honest, looks pretty darn cool. At $18,500, we're definitely in the higher range for these trucks, but consider what you're getting. A clean title Power Wagon with original paint, overhauled engine, modern suspension upgrades, and all the hard work already done. In today's market for classic 4x4s, especially with the rising popularity of these old Dodges, the price isn't outrageous for what appears to be a well-maintained example. 4. We're looking at a pretty interesting 1970s Chevy pickup that's caught my attention, listed at $15,000. Let me be straight with you about this one. I've got to point out something right away. The claimed 10,000 miles is raising some eyebrows. For a 53-year-old truck, that's extremely low, and without documentation, we should probably take that number with a grain of salt. The odometer has likely rolled over at least once, maybe more. This orange beauty with black interior is advertised as a one-owner vehicle, which is pretty remarkable if true. The seller claims it's in excellent condition and has a clean title, which are both positive signs. The automatic transmission makes it an easy driver, and these old Chevys are known for their reliability when properly maintained. However, I've got to be honest, the listing is pretty light on details. We don't know which engine it's running, whether it's had any restoration work, or if it's all original. These are crucial details for a truck of this age and at this price point. The bright orange paint looks good in the listing, but we'd need to know if that's original or a respray. At $15,000, you're in the middle range for these classic C10s. These trucks have seen a huge surge in popularity over the last decade, and prices have risen accordingly. If it's truly in excellent condition as claimed, it could be a decent deal in today's market. What makes these 1970s Chevys special is their classic styling and simple mechanics. They're easy to work on, parts are readily available, and they've got that timeless look that never goes out of style. 5. We're looking at something really special, a 1955 Chevy pickup that's asking $30,000. Let's dive into this piece of American history. I've got to keep it real with you folks. The odometer has rolled over on this one, so those 74,910 miles aren't telling the whole story. But honestly, with a truck from 1955, mileage is less important than condition and history. What's interesting here is that this truck was rebuilt back in the 1980s, which means it's actually been restored for longer than some of us have been alive. It's running the original inline-six engine paired with a manual transmission. That's the authentic 55 Chevy experience right there. The seller mentions it's all original except for the interior, which is actually pretty impressive for a truck of this age. The red paint gives it that classic look, and being in excellent condition suggests the 80s rebuild has held up well. These 55 Chevys are absolutely iconic. They marked a revolutionary design change for Chevy trucks with their wraparound windshield and modern, for the time, styling. Now, about that $30,000 price tag, it's definitely in the higher range, but the market for 50s Chevy trucks has been pretty hot lately. The key here would be verifying the quality of that 1980s rebuild and checking how well it's been maintained since then. The good news is, they're offering to consider best offers. One thing I really appreciate is that they kept the original 6-cylinder engine instead of dropping in a V8 like many people do. That shows some respect for the truck's heritage. 6. We're checking out a pretty special 1972 Chevy C10 that's got my attention, listed at $20,000. Let me tell you why this one's interesting. The biggest highlight here is what's under the hood. We're talking about a numbers-matching 454 big block V8 with a 4-barrel carb. That's the holy grail for these trucks, folks. Finding a C10 with its original 454 is getting increasingly rare, as most of these engines have either been swapped out or the trucks have been lost to time and rust. The seller reports 64,000 miles on the odometer, and while that might seem low for a 51-year-old truck, what's really catching my attention is the seller's genuine enthusiasm about the truck's reliability. When someone calls their truck super loyal, that usually means they've actually used and maintained it, not just kept it as a garage queen. These 72 C10s are absolutely gorgeous trucks. They've got those clean body lines, the iconic front end, and that perfect stance that just looks right. The RWD setup with the automatic transmission makes it a practical classic you can actually enjoy driving. At $20,000, we're definitely in the higher range for C10s, but consider what you're getting. A numbers-matching 454 big block is a huge value factor here. These engines were factory rated at 240-270 horsepower depending on the setup, which was serious muscle for a pickup truck in 1972. The clean title is another plus, and the seller's description of it being very reliable suggests this isn't just a pretty face. It's a functional classic that's been taken care of. 7. We're looking at something pretty special, a 1974 Ford F-250 Highboy for $10,000. Let me be completely honest about what we're dealing with here. First off, this is a genuine Highboy. That's Ford's legendary factory-lifted F-250 that's developed quite a cult following. What makes this one interesting is that it's got a relatively fresh 460 big block V8 with only 10,000 miles on it. That's the monster motor you want in these trucks. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. This truck has been sitting since 2016. That's about 7 years of sitting, folks, and any vehicle that sits that long is going to need some attention. The seller is upfront about this being a project, which I appreciate. You're going to need new tires right off the bat, and anytime a vehicle sits this long, you should expect to deal with fuel system issues, seals, and probably brake work. The body condition seems pretty honest. There's a dent in the hood and some dings in the tailgate. But the seller notes the box, bed, is good. That's actually important because these old Ford beds can be rust magnets. With 100,000 miles showing on the odometer, that's reasonable for a truck of this age. The 4WD setup with an automatic transmission makes this a desirable combination, and the blue paint gives it that classic Ford look. The clean title is definitely a plus. At $10,000 or best offer, you're not looking at crazy money for a highboy, especially with that 460 engine. These trucks are indeed getting harder to find, particularly in restorable condition. However, be prepared to invest some time and money getting it back on the road after that long sit. 8. We're checking out a pretty interesting 1974 Dodge Ram D100 Power Wagon listed for $9,995. Let's dive into what makes this one special. Right off the bat, let's address the rebuilt title, but don't let that scare you away just yet. The seller is upfront about why. It's due to a bed replacement, which is actually pretty common for these old trucks, and honestly better than dealing with a rusted-out original bed. What's really catching my attention is the claim of zero rust. That's huge for a '74 Dodge. This Power Wagon is rocking the bulletproof 3-18 V8 engine. That's 5.2 liters for you younger folks, paired with a 4-speed manual transmission and 4x4 with locking hubs. That's a dream combination for many enthusiasts. You've got full control over that V8 power and serious off-road capability when you need it. The orange paint makes it stand out, and with 79,000 miles showing on the odometer, it's got relatively low mileage for its age. The seller mentions it runs and drives great, and they've put on brand new tires, which is always a nice bonus. That's easily $1,000 you don't have to spend right away. At just under $10,000, you're getting a lot of classic truck for your money here. These Power Wagons are getting harder to find, especially ones without rust issues. Yes, it has a rebuilt title, but considering it's just from a bed replacement, that might actually work in your favor on the price without compromising the truck's integrity. 9. We're looking at an interesting package deal. 2 1977 Chevy Cheyennes for $4,500. Let me be completely honest about what we're dealing with here. Folks, this is definitely a project situation, and I appreciate the seller being upfront about it. The main truck was a daily driver until it was parked 5 to 10 years ago due to carburetor issues. We all know what sitting that long can do to a vehicle. While it does run and can drive onto a trailer, that's about all it's doing right now. It's got dings, rust, and it's going to need some serious TLC. The second truck? Well, it's basically a parts donor, and it's described as rusty with a potentially seized 327 engine that came from a car. That's not necessarily a bad thing, though. Having a parts truck can be gold when you're restoring these old Chevys. The odometer shows 90,999 miles, but on a 77, that number's about as reliable as a chocolate teapot. The automatic transmission and 4x4 setup would be nice features once everything's sorted out. Here's the real talk. At $4,500 for both trucks, you're looking at a fair price in today's market, especially considering you're getting 2 3/4-ton 4x4s. These Cheyennes are getting harder to find, and having a parts truck included could save you thousands in the long run if you're planning a restoration. Just remember, this isn't a weekend project. You're looking at significant work to get the main truck roadworthy again, including dealing with that carb issue, checking all the systems that have been sitting, and addressing the rust and body damage. 10. We're looking at something pretty wild, a 1962 Ford Ranchero that's asking $25,000. And this isn't your grandpa's stock Ranchero. Let's get real about what we're looking at here. This is a heavily modified car truck with some serious upgrades, most notably that LT1 engine swap. For those who might not know, that's a modern Chevy V8 heart transplanted into this classic Ford body, a combination that'll definitely get people talking at car shows. The seller mentions it's tubbed, meaning the wheel wells have been modified to fit wider tires, and it's got a shift kit in the automatic transmission for harder, faster shifts. This tells us one thing clearly. This Ranchero was built for performance. Now, let's address some important points. First, it's got a salvage title, which is something you need to consider seriously at this price point. The odometer shows 3,258 miles but is rolled over, so the actual mileage is anyone's guess. The red paint gives it that eye-catching look, but you'll want to verify the quality of the paintwork in person. At $25,000, you're paying for the modifications more than the original vehicle. This isn't a numbers-matching collector's piece. It's a custom build meant for performance and show. The LT1 swap, if done properly, offers reliable modern power and easier maintenance compared to the original engine. This is definitely a niche vehicle. It'll appeal to someone who appreciates modified classics and doesn't mind the Ford-Chevy mashup. The tubbed rear end suggests this was built for serious straight-line performance. 11. We're looking at a 1977 Chevy Silverado stepside that's listed for $4,500, and I've got to keep it real with you about this one. Let's address the elephant in the room right away. This truck doesn't run or start. The seller is upfront about it being a project, and they're not kidding. When a vehicle is described as complete but doesn't run, you're looking at potentially significant work to get it back on the road. What makes this interesting is that it's a stepside model, which is becoming increasingly desirable among collectors. These 77 Silverados are beautiful trucks when they're restored, and this one's got some nice features like power windows and power door locks. Pretty fancy stuff for a 77. The white paint and V8 engine are classic Chevy truck specs, and it's got a clean title, which is always a plus. But let's be honest, at $4,500 for a non-running truck, you need to go into this with your eyes wide open. You're likely looking at minimum a fuel system overhaul, electrical system check, and probably some engine work. These old trucks are generally pretty simple to work on, but parts and labor can add up quick. The price point is in the ballpark for a project status stepside from this era, but you'll want to thoroughly inspect the body for rust, especially in those signature stepside fenders. They can be expensive to replace. Check the frame, and try to determine exactly why it's not running before making an offer. 12. We're checking out a 1978 Chevy Cheyenne Big 10 that's listed for $4,000, and let me tell you what's catching my eye here. First off, this is a Big 10 model. That's Chevy's heavy-duty half-ton truck that came with some beefed-up components from the factory. At 74,179 miles showing on the odometer, that's relatively low for a truck of this age. Though as always with these old trucks, take that number with a grain of salt. The seller's keeping the description pretty brief, but they're highlighting some important features. You're getting a V8 engine, though they don't specify which one, paired with an automatic transmission. The power steering and power brakes make this old workhorse much more manageable to drive, and that tilt steering column is a nice comfort feature for a 78. Now here's where I need to be straight with you. While the seller lists the condition as excellent at $4,000 in today's market for a running, driving Big 10, we're probably looking at something that needs some attention. These trucks typically command higher prices if they're truly in excellent condition, so I definitely want to inspect it thoroughly in person. The clean title is definitely a plus, and if it truly runs great as stated, $4,000 could be a decent deal in today's market. These Cheyennes are getting more popular with collectors, especially the Big 10 models. Before pulling the trigger, you'd want to check all the usual trouble spots: cab corners, rocker panels, bed floor, and frame rails for rust. Also, verify which V8 engine it's got, as that can significantly affect value and desirability. 13. We're looking at something pretty special. A 1965 Ford Ranchero listed at $15,500, and this one's got some tasty upgrades. Let's dive into what makes this car-truck hybrid interesting. It's running a 302 V8 paired with a C4 automatic transmission. That's a reliable Ford powertrain combo that's easy to maintain and find parts for. The sellers added some smart upgrades including power steering and front disc brakes, which make this classic way more enjoyable to drive in modern traffic. What's really catching my attention is the thoughtful modernization. You're getting in-dash AC and dual electric fans, which shows someone was thinking about making this Ranchero practical for regular use. Those Mustang 5-lug pony wheels aren't just for looks, they open up a whole world of wheel options. And that 3.25 Mustang differential is a nice compromise between highway cruising and acceleration. With 81,000 miles showing and a clean title, plus new tires and a fresh exhaust system, it sounds like someone's been taking care of this beauty. The blue paint gives it that classic Ford look, and the RWD setup with these upgrades should make it a pleasure to drive, just as the seller claims. At $15,500, you're in the right ballpark for a well-maintained 65 Ranchero with upgrades. These vehicles are getting harder to find, especially ones that have been thoughtfully modified for modern usability without going overboard. 14. We're looking at something pretty special. A 1974 Ford F100 Ranger XLT that's asking $23,000, and let me tell you why this one's got my attention. First off, this is a California truck, which typically means better preservation due to the climate. What's really exciting here is that big 390 V8, 6.4L under the hood. That's one of Ford's most robust engines from this era. With only 42,000 original miles claimed, this is unusually low mileage for a 74, and if documented, that's a huge value factor. The seller's making some bold claims here, and they all add up to what could be a time capsule truck. No rust, thank you California, no leaks, no accidents, and all original stock condition. That's increasingly rare for these old Fords. The Ranger XLT was the top trim level, so you're getting all the fancy features Ford offered in 74. What's particularly interesting is that everything seems to work: the radio, heater, fan, and it even has an alarm system. Good tires and brakes mean you won't have to immediately spend money on maintenance. Being smog exempt and having tags through October 2024 is a nice bonus for California buyers. Now, about that $23,000 price tag. While it might seem steep, the market for original low-mileage classic trucks has been hot, especially for California trucks with documented history and no rust. The long bed configuration might not be everyone's favorite, but it's original to the truck. The automatic transmission paired with that 390 V8 makes this a comfortable cruiser, and these F100s are known for their smooth ride quality. The seller's confidence in stating, "You won't find a better truck than this," suggests they know what they have. 15. We're looking at a seriously sweet 1966 Ford F100 listed at $19,500, and this one's got some impressive upgrades worth talking about. Let's start with that 352 V8 with a 4-barrel carb. That's a great engine choice for these trucks, offering plenty of power, especially with those headers. The seller claims only 1,500 miles, which likely means that's the mileage since restoration, as this truck's clearly been thoroughly gone through. The modifications list is impressive and shows someone really thought this build through. The Idiot tilt steering column is a quality upgrade that makes these old trucks much more comfortable to drive. Power steering and power drum brakes are great features to have, making this classic much more manageable in modern traffic. What really catches my attention is the attention to detail. They've completely rewired the truck, a smart move on these old Fords, and installed all new gauges. The rebuilt front end and 4-core aluminum radiator suggest they were thinking about reliability and drivability, not just looks. Speaking of looks, that dark cherry and silver paint combination on a straight body sounds gorgeous, and those Craigar wheels are a perfect period-correct touch. The new interior in silver gray complements the exterior nicely, and that sliding rear window is a desirable feature for these trucks. The sprayed-in bed liner is a practical touch that'll protect the bed, and having the original owner's manual is a nice bonus that shows attention to preservation. At $19,500, you're getting a thoroughly restored F100 with quality upgrades that make it both showable and drivable. These trucks have been climbing in value, and one with this level of restoration and thoughtful modifications could be a solid investment. 16. We're checking out a 1983 GMC 3500 crew cab listed at $8,500, and let me be straight with you about what we're looking at here. First off, this is a crew cab 1-ton truck powered by the legendary 454 big block V8, paired with the equally legendary Turbo 400 transmission. That's a powertrain combination that's earned its reputation for being nearly indestructible. The seller's confidence in calling it bulletproof isn't just hype. These powertrains are known to run forever when maintained. Now, let's address some realities. The odometer's broken at 172,469 miles, so we don't know the true mileage. The seller's honest about the truck's fair condition, and the AC doesn't work. Something to consider if you're in a hot climate. However, they claim there's no road rust, which is pretty significant for a 40-year-old work truck. The excellent rubber tires comment is a plus, as tires for these 1-tons aren't cheap. Being a 4-door crew cab makes this more versatile than a standard cab, whether you're using it for work or family duty. At $8,500, you're not looking at crazy money for a crew cab 1-ton with the big block 454. These trucks are getting harder to find, especially without major rust issues. The RWD setup means less complexity than a 4x4, which can be a good thing on a truck of this age. Before pulling the trigger, you'd want to verify that no road rust claim thoroughly, and check all the usual trouble spots these GMCs are known for. Also, factor in the cost of fixing that AC if you need it. 17. We're looking at something really unique. A 1947 Studebaker M5 pickup asking $15,000, and this one's got some interesting mods that make it a proper driver. Let's talk about what's making this old study tick. Gone is the original engine, replaced with a 305 V8 that's showing strong compression numbers. The builder went with some solid performance parts, new Edelbrock RPM intake, and 600 CFM carb, HEI distributor, and a reliable Turbo 350 transmission. That 9-inch rear end with 2.88 gears is perfect for highway cruising, which explains why the seller confidently states it'll do 70 mph all day long. The fuel system's been modernized with a Holley pump and a fuel cell in the bed. That's smart thinking for reliability. The dual exhaust with glass packs gives it that classic hot rod sound that these old trucks deserve. Now, let's be honest about the cosmetics. The red paint shows wear, and the seat needs help, currently covered with a blanket to hide rough upholstery. The 16-inch Steelies with weathered white wall tires give it that perfect period look, even if they're not pristine. It's been converted to 12V, though the original gauges aren't hooked up. I love the seller's straightforward attitude. No lowballs, no trades, except maybe for a blown 454, and no text negotiations. That usually means they know what they have and aren't just trying to flip it quick. At $15,000, you're getting a head-turning classic truck that's been built to drive, not just show. These Studebaker trucks are pretty rare nowadays, and finding one that's been thoughtfully modified with reliable modern running gear isn't common. 18. We're checking out a 1963 GMC 1000 long bed that's listed for $19,500, and let me tell you what makes this classic interesting. First off, this is a fully restored example of GMC's 1000 series pickup, and it's got some interesting features. It's running the original V6 engine. Yes, you heard that right. GMC was actually pioneering V6 engines in trucks when most manufacturers were still pushing straight sixes. That's paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, which makes for an engaging driving experience. The seller's upfront about the odometer having rolled over from the 74,600 showing, which is appreciated honesty. Being completely restored and ready for the car show suggests significant work has been done, though I'd love to know more details about what that restoration involved. These 63 GMCs are getting harder to find, especially in restored condition. The long bed configuration might not be everyone's favorite for shows, but it's original to the truck and actually rarer than the short bed in preserved condition. At $19,500, you're in the territory where documentation of the restoration becomes really important. You'll want to verify what was restored, when it was done, and see photos of the process if possible. These trucks have been climbing in value, especially well-restored examples. One thing that makes these GMCs special is that they're often overlooked compared to their Chevy siblings, making them more unique at car shows. That V6 4-speed combo is also a conversation starter, as it's distinctly GMC. 19. We're looking at something pretty unique. A 1984 Chevy Blazer with some serious military-inspired upgrades, listed at $9,500. Let's talk about what makes this Blazer special. First off, it's running the 6.2L diesel engine, which is a workhorse of a motor that's known for its reliability when maintained properly. These engines aren't speed demons, but they'll run forever if you treat them right. The fact that it's got new glow plugs is a good sign of maintenance. What really catches my attention is the 24 12-volt electrical system. That's a military spec setup, and combined with those 37-inch Humvee tires, someone was clearly going for a military-inspired build here. Those tires alone are a significant investment, and they'll give this Blazer some serious off-road capability. The 70,000 miles showing isn't bad for a diesel of this age, and being smog-exempt is a nice bonus for California buyers. The manual transmission makes this even more interesting. These diesel-manual combinations are getting harder to find. The black paint gives it that tactical look, and with a clean title, you're not dealing with any paperwork headaches. The seller's straightforward runs and drives comment suggests it's a functional vehicle, not just a project. At $9,500, you're in the right ballpark for a diesel Blazer with these upgrades. The Humvee tires and dual voltage system add real value if they're properly installed. However, you'll want to check the usual rust spots these Blazers are known for, particularly around the wheel wells and rocker panels. 20. We're looking at a 1964 Chevy C10 listed at $15,000, and let me tell you what makes this one interesting. First off, this truck is running its original straight-six 296 engine paired with the original 4-speed floor shifter. That's becoming increasingly rare to find, as most of these trucks have either been V8 swapped or converted to automatic transmissions. The manual transmission with that inline six makes for a fun, engaging driving experience. Now here's something important to note. This truck started life as a wide body, fleet side, but has been converted to a step side. That's a significant modification that affects value for collectors, so it's good the seller's upfront about it. The short bed configuration is original though, which is typically more desirable. Being a New Mexico truck is actually a big plus. That dry climate typically means less rust issues than trucks from wetter regions. The fuel tank relocation from the cab to the bed is actually a smart safety upgrade that many people do on these old trucks. The seller's honest about the clear coat peeling, which means you're looking at a repaint in the future if you want it looking pristine. That orange color underneath could be stunning with fresh clear coat though. At $15,000, you're in the market range for these trucks, but the body style conversion and clear coat issues might give you some negotiating room. The original drivetrain adds value, especially if it's running well.